Let's talk about why you should consider moving to a studio apartment. Both I and my husband have been living in this studio apartment where I'm recording right now for a bit over 4 years. And this was not planned at all. At first, when we arrived here in Toronto, Canada, our plan was to just live in a cheap apartment, the next best thing basically, for maybe the first year while we get settled until we got jobs. And after that, move to a proper, like a 1-bedroom apartment or even larger. But that just never happened because we got so comfortable and so used to the studio life. So in this video, I want to walk you through my thought process and tell you why I think, especially in these times when everything is so damn expensive, why you should also consider to downsize to a studio apartment, for example. Or if you're used to, let's say, living in a 3-bedroom apartment, it could also mean for you to move from a 3-bedroom apartment and downgrade to a 2-bedroom apartment, or from a 2-bedroom apartment down to a 1-bedroom apartment. But here in this specific case, I'm talking about studio apartments, so this applies specifically to all those of you who are either living on your own, or if there are only two of you, if it's just you and your spouse, you and your friend, you and your boyfriend, girlfriend, and whatever. In that case, I would definitely suggest you to consider the studio life. So let me start with the first reason, and this is very obvious. A studio apartment is much, much cheaper. And as everyone knows, Toronto is super expensive, not just now because of the economy and inflation, but it has always been expensive. For example, for a 1-bedroom apartment, you can easily spend $1,800. That's, I would say, the average. And for a 2-bedroom apartment, you could easily spend $2,200, $2,500, and really the sky is the limit. If it's in the city center, if it's a luxury apartment, if it has many amenities, it could cost you $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, and so on. Whereas this studio here where I'm living right now, do you know how much it cost me? It only cost me $1,280. It only cost me $1,280 per month, and that already includes heating. So the only thing I have to pay on top of that is hydro and insurance, which is really not a lot. So in the beginning, when I just moved in here, the rent was actually $1,180, so close to $1,200. But over the 4 years, these 4 years, there were several small rent increases. So overall, the rent increased by $100. So if you start out with a very low rent, if it's only $1,200, $1,300, then rent increases won't hit you as hard. I mean, it still hits you hard, but not as hard as compared to if your rent were $5,000, right? If your rent is $5,000 and then there's like a 5% rent increase, then it means you pay $250 more, which is really a lot. So I must tell you, disclosure, I am not living in a luxury building and not in the city center. I am living in a very nice area, family-friendly area, but it's not in the city center at all. It is quite far. It's in the west side of Toronto, but it is very well connected to the subway, to the bus, and also to the streetcar. So I just want to tell you that, especially if you're new here, you do not always have to look for a place in the city center, because Toronto is so well connected. It's very easy to get around using public transportation. So really be open to explore all the other areas in Toronto so that you can get yourself the very best deal, something that's more affordable. And the next reason why you should consider living in a studio apartment instead of a condo, 1-2-bedroom apartment is that you do not only save on rent itself, but also on all the other associated or the other connected costs, because you're not just only paying rent, but you also have to pay for utilities. So if you have to pay extra for heating, that means that the larger your place is, the more you will spend on that. And in my case, for example, heating is already included in that $1,280. I know, really great, right? And the next thing is also hydro or electricity. So the larger your space is, the more likely it is that you will be buying more electronics. You will maybe be buying a larger fridge, and maybe you will have 2 TVs and so on. So your electricity bill will be higher. Whereas in my case, in my around 330 square foot apartment, I only spend around $40-50 on hydro each month, which is really affordable. And also, there's also another indirect cost related to living in a larger space, and that is that you will be inclined to buy much more stuff, because after all, what are you going to do with all that space, right? If you're living in a 1,000 square foot apartment, you need to fill it with something, right? I mean, you will maybe be buying extra furniture, maybe another sofa over there, maybe another shelf over there, or maybe that fancy coffee table, maybe 2 more chairs, and so on and so on. There's really no end to it. Whereas if you live in a studio apartment like I do, you can really only fit in the very basics, the essentials, the must-have. So you will also be spending much less on furniture, on decoration, and on all trinkets for the kitchen, all the stuff, the gadgets that you don't really need, right? And a very important thing, one more thing that you can also save by living in a studio apartment is your time. Because if you're living in a larger space, automatically you will need more time to clean it. That's if you clean it. But if you like your place to be tidy and clean, then you can expect to spend maybe 2 hours per week cleaning it. Whereas for our studio apartment here, that's around 30 plus square meters, it only takes us really around 30 minutes per week for the both of us to do our teamwork and get this place cleaned up. It's really very fast. And personally, I do not like to spend a lot of time cleaning things. So that's one of the reasons why I'm really happy living in this studio apartment. And of course, another important reason is, what can you do with all that money that you save? Okay, let's just rewind a bit and let's talk about how much you can save. So if we had rented a 1-bedroom apartment or condo instead, and let's just say that it would cost us $1,800, whereas now we're paying $1,280, or let's just say $1,300. So the difference is $500. So $500 times 12 months per year, that's already $6,000. Over 4 years, so we've been living here for 4 years, that would be $24,000. And I think it's a lot of money. So instead of putting that money to pay, using that money to pay our rent, we were able to invest the money instead. And frankly, there are so many other things that you could do with that money. If you like to travel, you can spend that money, part of that money on a trip, and invest the rest. Or you can even save the money for your mortgage down payment if you're planning to buy a house here in Canada, in Toronto, or maybe not in Toronto, maybe in the surrounding areas which are cheaper. If you plan to do that, then you need to start saving up for your down payment, and that can take a while. So one of the, I think, easiest way to do that is to downgrade your accommodation, your living space, so that you pay less rent, so that you can save up the difference and use that towards your mortgage down payment. Yeah, so that's it, guys. I hope that gave you an idea and that gave you something to consider in case you're looking for a new place and want to move somewhere else, and maybe you're considering living in a studio apartment. But hold on, here you might ask me, how is it living in a studio apartment? And maybe you're thinking, no, I could never do that. It's just too cramped. There's like not enough space, right? And that's also what I thought in the beginning. But I must tell you that after a while, you really get used to it. So in the beginning, I thought that I could maybe live in a studio apartment for a year or so at the most. And after that, I would need to move to a larger apartment. But after a while, we were able to configure our living space in a way with very little things, and placing our desk in certain corners of the room so that each of us would have their own space, and to make everything optimal. And yeah, somehow everything kind of worked out, and now I don't really feel that I don't have enough space anymore. I mean, if I need space, I just go out and take a walk in the park, and that's one of the great things that I think you can do here in Toronto. I mean, if you want to go for a walk, if you need fresh air, you just go out, you just step out of your studio apartment, you can just leave it behind and take a walk, right? So yeah, consider that. And I hope that this video was useful to you. And if you like this video and you want me to make more videos like this in the future, please let me know by hitting the like button, and also let me know in the comments what you think of this video. Thank you so much for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next video.